Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us in continuation of our watch and discussions concerning the February 25th presidential and senatorial elections in Nigeria. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good.
You're doing fine.
Excellent. So we followed the build up to the elections, and we had the first segment of this conversation about what we expect. The Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman and Chief Returning Officer for the February 25th presidential election, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, declared Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu the winner of the presidential election. So that makes Senator Bola Tinubu officially Nigeria's president-elect. So what do you make of the conduct of the election by INEC? Let's start from there before we get to the results. I would like to start today with Captain Garber, who is joining us for the first time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. And congratulations to the president-elect. On the conduct of INEC, I wouldn't rate them too highly. They've done a lot of things as is done in Nigeria. We have desires and we don't think about how to implement what we desire. From what I understand, they got these beavers marching from Asia, Japan, I think, if I'm correct. But they got it from over there. These guys have full internet all over their country. We don't have full internet all over our country. Beavers is supposed to transmit. Transmit with what? We cannot just literally depend on, we got this machine, it worked in Kenya, it worked in Japan, it worked in South Africa, and it's going to work in us because we don't have the same underlying needs.
What about the electorate? Let's talk about Nigerians who went out to cast their ballot. What's your impression with the current tempo in Nigeria in terms of people turning out?
The wonderful thing is, when they say people should get their voting cards, we had 90-something million people with voting cards. It's a shame that it's only about 30 million. Less than 30%.
I will score INEC 100% for keeping to the timetable to hold the elections, because there was a lot of rumors that the election may be postponed. I remember after the FEC meeting on Tuesday, Wednesday, people were speculating that the election will be postponed. But true to their action and words, the election held. So that is where my 100% or my pass mark stops. I have a litany of infractions by INEC that I don't know, I just felt so much disappointed. Not being attached to any party, political party, but just that I'm a Nigerian, and like since yesterday, it's been on the news, on CBC. So when such things are being broadcast outside and it concerns us, it tends to make me feel bad.
Could you talk about specifics?
Right. You mean on the infractions?
Yes, in terms of what you felt went wrong, because the essence of doing this is we are in a developed country and we see how these things work. What are some of the things you think we could have done better? Captain Garber just touched on certain.
Yeah, okay. My friend Captain Garber mentioned low turnout. We should also try to investigate what could have caused this low turnout. When you have in many places, INEC and electoral materials never arrive those places until around 3 o'clock when voting is supposed to stop. In some places, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Any voting in such a place is illegal. How will people not run away from their polling booths when they are told, if you are not voting for this person, you better go home? go home, go to your house. We didn't beg you, we don't beg you. Those are the things that will make voters to go back. And that is why the turnout was low.
Is that part of the feedback you got from your family members or friends in Nigeria?
Well, like you know, we are lucky these days because of the internet. We see a lot of things happening in real time. So it's not, most of them are not a question of they say. You see it happening, video live. So those things kind of put me off. I was thinking that at this, let me say, fourth time that we were going to get it right. And talking about the Beavers machine, we were told that it does not need our terrestrial internet here, that is connected to satellite above. So with satellite, wherever you are, you should be able to get internet connection. But then what we later understood from the videos we were seeing too, it's not official though, that there were places where these Beavers machines were being manipulated, were being reconfigured. So those things basically will cause malfunctioning. And there were polling booths where there were no Beavers. So when people get there, they say, there's no vote, you know. So they have to go back.
Let's start with INEC conduct. INEC set us up to expect a very fair and credible election. And President Buhari has assured Nigerians that he will hand over. What we got, though, was quite the contrary. We saw Nigeria at its worst, playing up its usual tricks, okay? Beavers, I think, is not a problem. It's a distraction, honestly. Like Dr. Ebere pointed out, there are means to transmit those things effectively via satellite. And just about 2 weeks prior to the elections, Elon Musk's company announced they've started satellite services in Nigeria, Starlink. So let's assume that the bright minds in Nigeria thought about it. That would have been easily a solution, assuming that they were not using the commercial maritime satellite. What we saw is levels of voter suppression in various ways, starting out with the Naira redesign. By doing that, it created chaos in the system, it created stress, and suddenly people who have to travel to locations were not able to travel to locations because they couldn't afford it. There's no money. And then again, we all acknowledge that it was designed in quote to prevent vote buying, but suddenly it made the price of votes much cheaper because for somebody who needs to eat and he doesn't have money, if you give him 500 Naira, suddenly it has a lot more value than the previous 5,000 Naira he will collect for votes. So that's that. And then we also have classic gerrymandering. Polling booths were moved at short notice to distances that people were going to find difficult to travel on a day that transportation has been stopped. So that is, again, something that is out in the open. It's not a hidden fact. Polling booths were moved. And then, of course, the threats of violence. And then, of course, people coming up to the polling booths and not able to get accredited on time because materials didn't arrive, and people waiting in line for very long and eventually giving up. I believe the turnout was significantly more than we have been told. I believe. The only challenge is we cannot cross-check this because A, the accreditation Beavers something has been taken away. So the uploading in real time that we can use to verify is gone. So now we rely on the uploading they did later. We don't know what numbers happened. And then, of course, we now went back to the old paper system where the results had traditionally been manipulated and changed. So we have an election. Well, we have a president-elect, but you can see the whole system was designed way ahead to effectively change the results to the interest they want.
Listening to some of the sound bites that came from the electorate, even from some of the conversations we've had on traditional media, online platforms, you could see that a lot of people were more worried about the issue of communication between INEC and the people who turned out to vote. Take, for instance, Dr. Gye just stated now that some people went to their locations and they noticed that it was moved. Do you think INEC could have done better in terms of communicating to those who turned out to vote, even if there was a delay?
Communications from INEC was not sound. Impossible things they were trying to do, we are going to extend the time. So if your polling booth now starts at 2, you're going to be voting till 10, how do you go home? There's no money. There's no light on the road. Security is not there. Train is not going to be running during election. Who the hell can carry the load? If we're going to put INEC load, take this one to Kaduna, take it to Otun, take this one to... The train is more efficient to carry this load, but they cancel trains to run. Nobody is going on the road.
A lot of people had confidence and faith in the system. People were so sure that it wouldn't be business as usual. And then it turns out that people felt shortchanged. Do you think INEC should have communicated better, even if they were running into challenges?
We cannot isolate the institutions from the society in which it operates. We are only as efficient and effective as the least sophisticated member of our community or in that chain of activity. So yes, INEC did send out communications, press releases. In fact, I got a text on my Nigerian line, my MTN line, asking me to go and vote from INEC. So they did that. Now, it isn't too complicated to actually target those texts. So if my polling booth was changed, they should be able to send it to that group of people in that polling unit. It's not rocket science. It could be done. And Nigerians can do it. Now, the challenge, of course, is Nigerians choose not to do it. And again, the INEC chairman may mean well, but again, he sits atop a bureaucracy of, I don't know, tens of thousands of people. And those tens of thousands of people do what they do, how they do, when they do. The challenge, of course, is what's going to happen to them when this election is done. Are there going to be consequences, or is it going to be business as usual as we do in Nigeria, which is always the challenge?
The question of compromise. Let us also think that some of the INEC officials may have been compromised such that this communication we're talking about was suppressed. And that compromise comes to voter suppression. I remember when they announced earlier that certain polling booths, no elections will take place there. And people were asking, why was it? And the INEC chairman said it's because there was violence in those areas. Okay, there was no time to dispute that, but at least they gave out that announcement, that notice. But then in the case where voting place or polling booths were changed overnight, that's a no-go. And there's no notice around to tell people, oh, your voting booth has been changed to another place. And by electoral law, people are not supposed to do more than, I think, a certain kilometer to go to a polling booth. And each polling booth is not supposed to have more than 500 people. So I don't know what communication system they are using, just like Dr. said. Yes, the chairman is at the echelon there. And he has lieutenants and other people below him. So it's not him that will be going to every polling booth. But I give them kudos too, because there was real voter education. I could hear and see the director of voter education and publicity or whatever, Dr. Okoye. Most times he was always giving, talks on how the election will hold. But like Captain Garber said, it's one thing to educate our Nigerians, and another thing for Nigerians to behave and accept what you have said. So it's unfortunate that at this time we are still saying it's our Nigerian thing. It's very shameful to say that. They were well trained. Well, training is at different levels. The presiding officers, assistant presiding officers, those have different responsibilities. But now, like you said, there's compromise. I mean, if you have an INEC official, you're asking him or her to upload the data, and she says no, because there's one particular clip, one video, where the lady refuses to do anything. It's like, you can't do me anything. And they're asking her, upload this data, this thing we have here. They've taken photos, take photos of from ECH, because from electoral law, it's supposed to be pasted on the wall of the polling booth, so that every Tom, Dick, and Harry can see it. And that is where people were taking their photos from. But some electoral officials refused to upload this.
So therefore, for such officers who confidently refuse to upload it, do you think they were operating from their own personal standpoint?
Yeah.
Well, his personal standpoint, but then, you know, induced by some higher authorities, or maybe one of them actually said, order from higher authorities from above says it should not.
So, Dr. Gye, we're talking about the caliber of people that INEC also used for the election, because if you're talking in terms of compromise, as we said, the INEC chairman probably was speaking from a point of sincerity, but the thing is, he cannot follow the staff to the location where they were all posted to. You were saying something about this staff. Let's hear you out again.
Yeah, so if I recollect rightly, the first thing is to look at the appointment of the staff themselves. Like I said, they are partisan. Now, a lot of them are, and I gave examples where we know of a nominee that was a special assistant to the president then. Clearly someone who is partisan. And we know of a nominee, no, actually of a resident electoral commissioner who is currently contesting to be a governor on the platform of a political party. So therefore, when did this person become partisan? Is it recent, or is it been something that they've always been and they were in the system? And then, of course, we have the career employees in the system who will, wanting to protect their positions and their jobs, will not go against the instructions of their immediate superiors if those superiors are partisan. And also, I highlighted the reality of Nigeria being Nigeria, where people will, quote, hammer. This is the opportunity to make money. A politician comes with words of money, they'll take it because this is their opportunity. And of course, people will just do what they need to do to make their ends meet, right? So those are the challenges of working in Nigeria. I also highlighted the fact that the ad hoc staff tend to be youth corps members. They will simply follow instructions. They're not in this complicity. Having said that, they too will also take the opportunity to make what they can when they can. So that's the reality. We cannot run away from it.
So if you look at that reality, what that tells me is that corruption is innate. You know, a lot of people, when they talk of corruption, they're talking about the presidency, they're talking about governors. So it means almost everyone in Nigeria is corrupt.
So again, if I'll jump in before I let the others make comment. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, isn't it? There is what people just accept as the norm. It's our culture. I remember Ali Muzuri saying, in Africa, you don't go to see the chief without taking a gift. That was our custom. And so we kind of just assumed it and we take it. So if I become an official in an office, that's kind of my chiefdom. You come to see me, you give me stuff. Having said that, we need to also look and see what damage it is doing to us as a society. Then we need to back off. When we talk of corruption at the higher levels of government, yeah, we're talking of huge sums of money, head-spinning sums of money that are taken from our Commonwealth. And then as you descend down the ladder, it comes into this small amounts here, small amounts there. I cheat, I don't go to work on time and it's okay. Or I'm giving myself a contract to my friends and it's okay after all. And those still impact it. So yes, when it comes to integrity of things like the election, I take a gift and I'm compromised. What we call vote buying is corruption in other societies. But again, in our customs, we say, oh yeah, he just gave me money now, so I'm obliged to support him too. Well,
so we all get to bear the brunt. Captain Garber.
I think Dr. Gye has really summed it up. Really. We cannot take this corruption out of our system. It's a very difficult thing to do. It has eaten into our bones all over the country in any service that we have. But we have the holier than the Pope attitude. We see the other guy being corrupt and we are innocent.
There is no consequence. If we start implementing consequence, it will stop. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. But the challenge in Nigeria is there's no consequence. We should stop looking at individuals. We should look at actions. This is wrong, is wrong. This is the consequence for it. Or this is right, is right. Therefore, we celebrate it.
The prison guards, they call people from outside to come and break the prison and come in and release all the. Right. You go to the bank to take money, they don't have new notes. The guy operating the post machine by the bank door has new notes.
Right.
All right, Dr. Ebere, you were raring to go.
Yes, actually, the corruption thing, that is why I was saying, why should we always say, a Nigerian thing? I remember in 1985, when the so-called war against indiscipline was introduced, a lot of things changed, like coming late to work and stuff like that. Those days, the army people were in charge, and you see them come to secretariat and lock it up. And people who hadn't come will suffer for that day. That's just it. So the corruption thing, no, it's not. It doesn't have to go on, because all these people who perpetrate it, they go abroad. They come to Canada, they come to the West, they go to the Asian countries and see how these things are done, how things are practiced. But it's just that so-called political will. And actually, I wanted to ask the question the other day. Now, in this electoral law of Electoral Act of 2022, there are so many, will I say, I won't call it punishments or whatever, for anybody who infracts on any of those provisions. Somebody who kind of shows whom you voted for, there is a penalty for that. Whoever commits this or that, there's a penalty for that. And you ask, who is arresting, who is enforcing these aspects of electoral law? Somebody goes into a polling booth and intimidates people. Somebody asks people not to come, and everybody's seeing it. Unfortunately, the security agents were helping them to perpetrate this act. We saw videos of security agents helping to thumbprint inside a polling area.
So, Dr. Ebere, that goes back to what Captain Garber said earlier when we started this conversation about having good policies, good initiatives. But when it gets to the point of implementation, that is where we have a challenge. Anyway, gentlemen, because of our time, I want us to go to the nitty-gritty of this election. Let's look at the electorate. I mean, we have talked about the turnout. Let's talk about the enthusiasm that we saw at the polling units. I don't know if some of you watched the videos, how some people voted and they stood there to protect their votes. I'd like us to touch on that a bit. Were you impressed with that attitude coming from the Nigerian electorate?
For me, absolutely yes. And I want more of it. Now, I know that you have the ruled and the ruling class. The ruled are continuing to exhibit an appetite for change. And we have a ruling class that is entrenched in a behavior that they don't want to change. And of course, they wouldn't change because they're in a position of privilege. You know how they say, when entrenched interest doesn't give up easily. And so they will continue to behave in a certain way. But absolutely, like I said earlier, we believe the votes turnout was significantly more than the quoted percentage. And you could see it from the enthusiasm of people saying, we will not be disenfranchised, we want to vote. And they were there demanding, protesting. We've not seen it as vehemently as in previous years. And then, of course, the response on social media with people posting videos of their polling booths and what transpired. Now, what you have is a disconnect with our ruling elite, who are stuck in behaving in certain ways and feeling entitled to power and feeling complete disconnect. And then another reality again is Nigeria is a country of multiple locations, which again speaks to that demand for the restructuring. Because the person who is in Lagos and is talking about democracy understands democracy in a completely different sense than somebody who is voting in a rural area in Sokoto. But we lump them together and think it's the same. we have to come to a point where we say, yes, in this our union, we have to arrange different things. And of course, the obvious thing is the power at the center is too much and it's too sweet. We have to break it.
The enthusiasm from the electorate was there. I have a personal example where my brother-in-law moved. On the day of the election, cars are not allowed, you cannot drive them. He walked 7 kilometers. I don't think he walks normal. He walked like exercise or something. But him and his wife walked 7 kilometers to go and cast their vote. I don't think I will do it here. We do elections here. They do it in England. They do it in France. What is the basis of no movement? When they don't have polling booths 1 kilometer from them. And of course, like taking power from the center, local governments are not working. If we are voting here, we are using schools, churches, mosques, things that have been provided by local government. It is where you live. But local governments are not working in Nigeria.
At the risk of being partisan, I could see the energy that was formed by the obedient movement, which now spread to every other political party, by the way. Because if you watch the political rallies everywhere, they were all like the same. So you could not differentiate on it unless you see flags or any other insignia to show that it is a particular party. So people were really excited and they came out, and like Dr. Gye said, the number they're telling us that voted is they're under quoting the number. But that's by the way. Again, when you see enthusiasm, you look at the lines formed by underage kids who are on the queue going to vote. And again, I don't know, I still get back to the security agencies for a commissioner of police to tell Nigerians that those might not be underage kids, that you cannot just determine that the person is young just by mere looking at the person, and that maybe it's because of genetic constitution that the person has stunted growth. When can we stop this?
No, Dr. Ebere, it is not the Inspector General of Police Force who gave them voting card.
Yeah.
We have a president-elect, and we also have parties that are aggrieved who are complaining. Let's look at the outcome of the election. Are you satisfied with the outcome and some of the things going on?
I would say I'm satisfied.
Okay.
I find a lot of energy into APC for years. I foresaw that we are going to win from our campaign. Atiku surprised me.
How?
By coming in second, he surprised me. I projected APC, LP, PDP.
And why is that?
You see, LP was riding away, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. They had a few mistakes. I think they brought along with their internet fellows, Obi campaign in about 22 states. Why would you campaign in 22 states when we have 36 states? So you're only campaigning in 2/3 of the states. I thought it was the self-assurance was getting in too much. APC campaigned all over Nigeria, sometimes repeating a place 2 or 3 times.
So in your opinion, APC did a better job, and that's why the result turned out the way it did.
They did a better job in the campaign.
All right. Let's go to Dr. Gye. What's your take on the outcome of the elections, especially the presidential? Mind you, there was senatorial, but everybody seemed to be talking more about the presidential.
Well, thank you for highlighting that, because that was something I was going to point to. I was going to say, look, in governance in Nigeria, unfortunately, attention is always on the presidential election, and we ignore the other tiers of government, which remarkably have much more impact on people's life, ideally, than the presidential office itself. So yes, I think the party that was likely going to win won. Now, the margins are narrow, are wider than I would have expected if things were free and fair. Because again, yes, we have to recognize the fact that the Labour Party didn't have the national spread it needed, right? The penetrance in the far north was limited, and that was always going to be an issue. Having said that, it was a good run. And again, it has changed the dynamics of Nigerian politics. And it has sent a clear message, again, to the ruling class: it is not business as usual. So that is key. And I trust and hope that the people who were in the Labour Party will not get disappointed and walk away, but rather they will stay more engaged in this process and demand their rights in future elections. Again, I also point to the fact that right now, as at last check, of the 89 seats that were counted, there were 6 Labour Party senators, and other parties had 1 or 2 that are there. So this is going to change the flow of the House. This is people coming with different voices, different perspectives. So that is also a new thing. Some of the older political parties, it is a warning sound to them, say, look, the owners of this House will demand from you to behave yourself. You are the tenant. In as much as you think you are the landlord, you're the tenant, and they're giving you notice, because they will find a way of sacking you. And by the way, this is not over yet, right? Let's wait and see if the challenges really come to court and the evidence comes up. Because if technology is the key, a lot of people took a lot of information. So we might yet see more upsets.
Objectively looking at it, with all the infractions that were noticed and noted, I do not look at the election as free and fair. Even the international observers like us, who observe from diaspora, the European Union and each other observer mission, they also pointed out those infractions. And it takes me back to what Garba said, and that is, we write these laws, but just implement it is where the problem is. Because we have this electoral law that is supposed to take care of some of the infractions. I mean, it says, if so and so happens, cancel the election in that polling booth. But now that did not happen. So with all those infractions, it's not impossible. Some political parties' votes were not really counted. But then, Mr. Garba, as you said, I'm not sure we need to verify this, that Labour Party did not campaign in all the states.
Oh, it's a fact.
I'm not sure of any state they did not campaign in.
22 states.
Okay, we'll check that out. But anyway, the way things are in Nigeria is not how many times you campaign that.
I think, yeah, the mere fact that they were able to pull off what they did in 7 to 10 months is a feat anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world.
Amazing.
5 months.
It's amazing what they did in the short while that they came.
I want us to talk about the speech of the president-elect. I don't know if you all listened to. What do you make of that speech? Dr. Gye?
So full disclosure, I didn't listen to all of it. I read bits of it. And to me, it sounded a statesmanly speech, conciliatory, reaching out, now recognizing and acknowledging I am the president of Nigerians. I'm president-elect for Nigerians, not the APC candidate anymore. And I wait to see what type of government he forms when he does take over. Is it going to be inclusive? Is it going to reach out to bring the nation together? That is where the real key is. Speeches are nice. words, and they say talk is cheap. Action is what talks and speaks louder.
It's a speech that wants to bring everybody together, which is very good.
Okay.
It's no winners, no losers, but I came up on top, and I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be the president for all, and we have a lot of work to do.
What do you expect as we move to the next round in March here? Because we saw what some people have called loopholes in this particular one. What lessons do you think INEC should take home, and what do you expect to see in the next one?
So this is going to be the even more interesting election because all politics are local. Again, we're going to see different patterns, different voting. The key remains, it shouldn't be nobody's life should be lost because of elections. In fact, the whole offset of power is to make life better for people. So I hope that we'll see sportsmanship and see that sense of statesmanly. You want to rule the entire people, then you should recognize the will of those people and accept whatever they choose to be, regardless of the fact that, yes, it may not have gone your way. Now, the key, of course, is INEC has to up their game better this time. They are not having to transmit results all the way to Abuja before they collate them. They are transmitting results, hopefully, to the state level before finally they take to Abuja. So hopefully that will reduce some of the drama we've seen, and we hope for the best.
Thank you very much. Captain Garber?
I like something earlier on. I think I said they were transmitting this into within that. Let them promise what they can deliver. Promise less, deliver more.
All right. Thank you very much.
And put people's mind at rest.
Okay.
And let us eschew any violence or anything. You are from my party, you are not my party. Every one of us is fighting for Nigeria.
Okay. Dr. Ebere.
You see, the next election is the one that is getting closer to the people, closer to the electorate. I would expect that it should really be hitch-free. I know that the governors or aspiring governorship candidates, they will have much more possibility of reaching to the electorate directly. So I'm hoping that electorate should not be induced. I'm hoping that now the INEC is saying because of logistics, they couldn't get to certain places. Now they've known such places. There was a particular case where INEC officials came to that place and they claimed, oh, they've been looking for their real booth, but it's not here, polling booth. They had to leave with all the electoral materials. Now I believe that every polling booth has been marked. So INEC, like he said, should up there again. And let them do something so that we'll support them. Because people were saying on TV, they had 4 years to plan for this, plan this whole thing out. So there should be no excuses. If for once, if we get at the governorship level right, that would be okay. And just like we're saying, who knows one day, when we withhold the power at the Senate, whittling down a little bit, then the real governance will be at the state level. And that is what we tell our people when you say, oh, Buhari is not doing well, Jonathan is not doing well. We are forgetting that the governors are the ones that are really supposed to be doing what we want.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's always nice to have you join us and share your thoughts. And we're particularly happy that you're in Canada and yet you're very concerned about issues in Nigeria in terms of development now. So we thank you very much. We'll watch the next round of election and then we'll regroup again to talk about the conduct of INEC, the electorate, and then to see where government is going.